I have some stories to tell as well. And the first one is that I am doing this because I was never really a great surgeon. I was a better listener, maybe, than some of my colleagues. Never a great surgeon. I never wrote a paper. I never authored a textbook. And I was never a department chairman or anything like that. So I had to do something else to be viable. And I got very excited about looking for the next generation, doing leadership development. And I met a man in 2002 who was my inspiration. This is Dr. Abdullah, who after we ran the Taliban out of Kabul, after 9/11, there was the reaction. The Taliban was evicted from Kabul and some of Afghanistan, not all of it for sure. The Minister for Foreign Affairs was this ophthalmologist, Dr. Abdullah, and I was fascinated by this. I said, I have to meet him. Went to Washington, got an interview, and spent some time with him, invited him to our American Academy of Ophthalmology meeting as a guest speaker in 2002. We've been friends ever since. And he inspired me because I sensed that he had this trusting atmosphere around him. I trusted him for sure. He seemed to trust me. He was very personal. He wanted to go global, and he wanted to make friends. And he felt that his physicians could certainly use some help. And so we started talking then about how we could develop some relationships. It became difficult in Afghanistan, but I had a great opportunity within a year because the Iraq situation evolved, and my West Point classmate said, would you be willing to go to Baghdad for a few months and meet some Iraqi doctors? The Iraqi doctors would really like to make friends. They've been cut off for so long. They're starved. They've been sanctioned. And they'd like connections with personal figures in medicine. They'd also like some organizational connections. He said, you've been doing that, I think. And I said, I've been doing testimony in state legislatures for ophthalmology. Baghdad would be much better than going to Albany to the state legislature. So I said, I'll be delighted. I had a wonderful experience there, met probably 1,000 Iraqi physicians in a couple of months. I had access to Army aviation. I went all over the country. It was the best time in Iraq to be there and made a lot of friends and started some organizational connections. And after that, or since then, I've had the experience of being in essentially every country on this map except for Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia. One occasion or another. Been to Yemen, to Iran, and to Iraq about 8 times. So I was going to talk a little bit about my experiences there with the doctors. I'd have never delivered direct care. Like I said, I was never great inside the eye. And so I have do things other than that a little better, I think, and I would rather go talk about making friends than, and I make some connections. Meet the Minister of Health. We don't have a website. I have a group of physicians that works with me. We do not have a website. We've decided to stay a little quieter. We call ourselves Doctors with Borders. No offense to Doctors Without Borders, but we like to work with the Minister of Health. We like to work with the local physicians, and we like to come back a second time. So we have a little different approach. We don't do direct care. We've had a lot of business, as you might imagine, and I'll tell a few stories about 3 countries, Iraq 2003 to the present, and our experiences with our friends there, and how they've really come a long way. My not too remote visit to Libya about 5 months ago, August and September, and what I experienced there. And what I know about Syria, I've been there a couple of times. I haven't been there recently, but a Syrian has been in my home for the last 4 months, Syrian ophthalmologist, so I really know what's going on there pretty closely. And I'll tell you a few stories about maybe the other Mideast countries and medicine, in issues in medicine. In the Saddam era, the Iraqi doctors, though very savvy, very sensitive, were certainly sanctioned. They were starved from technology, starved from outreach. They couldn't go to conferences. A few guys could go. They couldn't. The wife stayed at home. Wife and kids stayed at home sort of as hostages so that they would always come back, so they could never take a family and go to a medical meeting. The British system had been infused. Medical education is in English. but they were really eager to make friends about this time. So the Army said it would be good if you could come back with your friends. So I brought back about 20 doctors, a medical a cardiologist, obstetrician, pediatrician, and we came to Baghdad in 2004 and assembled there in the green zone and started, and for about 10 days, had a lot of interaction with about 500 Iraqi physician leaders, made good obstetric connections, good cardiology connections, talked a little bit about teaching and training, talked also about leadership development, organizational development, and some of the things that they really wanted to get acquainted with. They didn't have much in the way of licensure, accreditation of educational systems, board certification, medical regulation, almost unheard of. Strange relationships between a certainly dominant public system and a loosely, totally unregulated private medical system that happens at night. So we've been doing things with them for 10 years. We found some money from a Kurdish oil man, my little gang and I, and then somebody liked it and the Department of State said, how would you like to take $3 million? I said, don't give me the money because I would be dangerous. So we had to find a friend. We found International Medical Corps as a very sustainable partner because they had a good footprint in Iraq. They had a field force there, and they could give us security, transportation, accommodations, and take good care of us. So we would go in 4 to 5 person teams, spend about 2 weeks, teach and train. At the end, do some talk about how are they going to get their organization more inclusive, more representative, more national. How are they going to build some bridges with the Royal College of Obstetrics? They really love the UK system because it's their heritage. When the Middle East was split up, Iraq was under the dominion of the sort of the British system. Syria, Lebanon went French. So the relationships persist. We're now doing more professional development with them. We have another opportunity starting in September to do research and publication issues, implementation of clinical guidelines. They just want to become more globally connected. So things are going pretty well. On the medical side, and I'll show another picture later to illustrate this more specifically. On the political side, it's another story completely. Here's a couple of pictures. Don't forget the lady up on top in red. Tagreed is an obstetrician who is really a remarkable young lady. Her husband is next to me, and he's in public health, and he's the president of the Anti-TB Society. They have sort of unusual medical associations there. There's the Anti-Diabetes Society, as if you could wipe it out, really. But and down below, I'll tell you a little bit about her, but they illustrate a couple points here. Despite the fact that there are still some substantial sectarian ethnic divides there. There's the Kurdish region, Kurdish Arab problem. There is the Shiite Sunni problem that is festering. The headlines yesterday were that the Sunnis are rearming and they're going to try to take President Maliki out of power. So there's still a lot of political issues. The doctors seem to have gotten over this a little bit, and they are sharing their toys a little better region to regions. They are trying to become more nationally inclusive of their membership. They're also recognizing the need to respect women in medicine. And it's taken a long time. I thought total disrespect 10 years ago. Now, you'll see a picture later of what Tagreed and her friend from Kurdish Iraq have done. The lady down below on the right is another example. I went back last time to talk about how to get the message across. They want to try to influence the Minister of Health and get something good out of the Minister of Health, like better capital equipment, a better budget for health care, some of that oil money into health, and a better system. But they don't really know how to talk to the minister. They've never had advocacy coaching. Marshila Devan is an expert at communications. She's the one who would give Leanna the A. She is very good at sort of undressing public speakers nicely. And she took some of these old sinister stoic Iraqi guys that I've known for 10 years who would hardly listen to me. They would fall asleep and then they would question and criticize, and they gave me a hard time. They never really wanted to stand up and speak for themselves. They just wanted to be critical. They would never come up with a proposition themselves. So I asked Marshila to come along and I said, I want you to challenge these 3 old guys from Baghdad to give a presentation. She made everybody do it. So it wasn't as if she was picking, but I want particularly get these 3 guys. And she managed to loosen them up. So things have changed. When they're willing to let a black lady from California, come in and take them apart, things are better. That's their president, Dr. Neshtaman from the Kurdish region. And the Kurdish region is really cosmopolitan. It's contemporary. There's a nightlife there. You can drink alcohol there. It's a wild and crazy place. They've got car dealerships. I can go jogging in the streets of Erbil any direction for a couple miles, no problem. It's different, certainly, than Baghdad. Dr. Thamer, on the right front, is the author of an article in Lancet, and you might just want to write this down. It's going to be a lot better description than mine about the way things are right now as he sees it. He's very objective, he's very honest, and he's telling the story sort of like it is healthcare in Iraq right now. It's a nice summary, and it's 9 pages in it, and it gives a pretty good story of some of the deficiencies that remain, and I'll summarize those when I talk about the big picture at the end. Certainly politics still prevails in Iraq, and the doctors are going to have to start learning more about how to deal with the Minister of Health. Libya was a fascinating visit. I'll show you a picture later, but the interim Minister of Health was a female, the only female in the cabinet. They got, after they captured Gaddafi, there was a transitional cabinet set up, and the guys all got together and they said, oh, no ladies. What are we going to do? Well, we couldn't give her finance, we couldn't give her transportation, we couldn't give her housing, health maybe. There's this obstetrician over there in Benghazi. No, we can't have her. She's really liberal. She wants women's rights. So the guy said, let's get the Irish lady who did so much for us. She's Libyan. So Fatima Hamrouche became the Minister of Health. I knew her from ophthalmology. She's also an ophthalmologist north of Dublin. I've known her for 5 years. I called her when I saw her name in the paper. I said, Fatima, you're going to be the Minister of Health? She said, please come help me because I am really over my head. I have never managed anything but a small clinic outside Dublin. They want me to be the Minister of Health in Libya. So she survived for a year, and she invited me to a World Health Organization conference in August. And it was fascinating. They had 400 doctors from all over the country. It's an open door. They came in and they just ranted and raved at the way things weren't running well. There were no nurses. There was no equipment. They had been totally isolated. It's a little bit like Iraq because sanctions had really crippled the Libyans as well. And Libya is bipolar. There's the Benghazi Tripoli problem. There is the issue of should we trust the expatriates who are coming back, or should we consider them to be, they bailed out, now they want to come back and be heroes. You've got the extremists, some of the Islamists that want to return to power. And you've got a lot of factions. You've got militia that haven't lost their weapons. So I think this bipolar thing is in a number of fields. It's not just geographical. The ministries are bipolar. They say, yes, yes, we want this, but they won't make a decision. And they'll say, yes, 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 we want this, but when you ask them what they need, they don't really want to get down to business. The hospitals operate independently, sort of a silo mentality. And the Tripoli Eye Hospital wants to do a deal, but they don't want to do it with the pediatric hospital. So there's very little interspecialty communication. The forum was valuable, but they have a totally new ministry now. Fatima's gone back to Dublin happily. And the new Minister of Health is a pediatrician who's from Benghazi, and he doesn't want to do anything for Tripoli. So it's a confusing problem. The NGOs don't really know what to do. USAID has told them, we're not spending any money in Tripoli. This is a rich country. They've got oil. They've got mega oil. We're not giving them any money at all. I spoke with your senator, you Connecticut folks. Most of you are from elsewhere, I guess. I spoke with him yesterday in Washington, and he was really interested in, and I spoke with my senator Thursday in Washington. They were both interested in Libya 6 months ago. Yesterday, they didn't even want to talk about it. Now we've got sequester, now we've got guns, Now we've got immigrants, and Libya is the farthest thing from their mind right now. So it's going to be a little difficult. We had an orthopedic team go, the Doctors with Borders. They did very well. We've got an obstetrics team there, but we need some support, and I think IMC will come through for us. 5 minutes? 3, 1.
We're actually out of time.
All right.
I'm sorry to cut you short, but I do want to make sure we have enough time for question and answer.
All right.
So if you would stay up here.
I'll summarize.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Syria, bad problems. There she is. There's the ophthalmologist who was in our home last week. She's back in Aleppo now. She's doing well. That's her president, Bashar Assad, who she sort of likes because she's Armenian Orthodox, and she says if the bad guys win this revolution, all the Christians are going to be run out of the country. So Syria's in trouble. The rest of the Gulf states, strange. I got to conclude. I have to conclude by saying that you can't do this alone. So it's not a one-man show. You have to have the power of medical organizations, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I won't go through this big slide, but I'll show you the picture. They have a partnership with their Iraqi colleagues that is dynamite. And that's Tagreed, the lady I showed you before. She and her pal up in the Kurdish region have revolutionized the obstetric society. It is now female dominant. It's run by the ladies, as it should be. And they've taken charge. The old gray-haired guy in Baghdad's finally stepped aside. So good things have happened, and it's because of the personal relationships. We need NGOs. I mentioned IMC, Project Hope is very good. I talked to you about these trends. There's Fatima, and my challenge to you is, I was told you have to conclude with what are you going to do? What you're going to do is volunteer to go global, and you can do it through your university, you can do it through your national society, you can contact me if you can deliver some service, and you can be a Doctor with Borders. And I thank you very much for your attention.